Hi everybody. Last week in art class we learned about a group of women who live in Alabama in a place called Gee's Bend, and they're really famous for making quilts, and it's a tradition that they have passed down from generation to generation for hundreds of years. So last week, if you didn't do your art lesson last week, you should go back and watch that video. I posted a link to it in the slideshow for this week. Okay, so go watch the old video. What you should have finished last week was a sketch, a plan for how you want your quilt to look. We're going to be drawing a quilt this week. All right, so this was my sketch, and then what it finished looking like when it was all done, it's like this, with lots and lots of colors. You don't have to be symmetrical. This is very symmetrical. Triangles here and here, and here and here. These are in all four corners. This is very symmetrical. Yours doesn't have to be symmetrical. Also, after today's video, if you end up thinking, I want to try something different, I don't really like my sketch from last week. So if I don't want to do this, I can flip my paper over. I could do a new sketch if you want to. All right, you're not stuck with what you had before, but I want you to be thinking. All right, so now today I'm going to talk to you about how to fill in and how to add the colors to really make it remind us of a quilt. There's all the quilts from Gee's Bend. I have lots of pictures of them in the slideshow to give you ideas and reminders. So try to look through and see something that you're thinking, I like the shape of this, I like how this looks, and that will be your inspiration for this quilt. All right, so we're going to need printer paper, and in the yellow folder that I gave you, everybody should have their own. If you don't have your yellow folder, ask your teacher. You need to use the printer paper. You actually should already have this from last week because you did your sketch last week. Okay, so here was the sketch. This is actually the sketch that I had showed you last week. But I think instead of doing something this symmetrical, I'm going to try something less symmetrical. Something kind of more wavy looking. So let's see. Maybe I'm going to do something that reminds me of water. And I saw a quilt that sort of had some lines like this, and I really liked it. And it's not symmetrical at all, and that's fine. But I really like the idea of a frame, sort of like a picture frame. So I'm going to draw that. Look at how I'm holding my wrist very still and just pulling my arm. If we go like this with our wrist, it's very hard to make a straight line. So, and I'm really good at drawing up and down. So see how I keep turning my paper so my arm is always here while I'm drawing? So I'm going to start up here and just pull my arm straight down. And I'm going to get my handy dandy eraser that's behind me. Right, so if you have your art packet, you should have your good eraser. And I'll erase those lines later. All right, so here's my plan, my sketch. Now I have to come up with some colors, and I think I want to divide. We're imagining that it's a quilt made up with different pieces of fabric. So I think I'm going to imagine that this right here is just one section of fabric, and I think I'm going to use gray. I'm just going to outline it, and this is going to be a fabric that has stripes. So I'm going to do gray stripes on this piece of fabric. And a lot of times if you're making a quilt, you're using the same piece of fabric over and over again. So it might be a big striped dress and you cut it up into lots of pieces. So it's going to be gray stripes, and then I think I'm going to take a crayon, let's say blue, and I can color on top of it. All right, I'm going to color this. Okay, so I finished coloring in the blue. So I'm imagining that maybe it was a pair of pants that was blue and gray stripes, and they cut it up and glued it down or sewed it down into lots of different pieces of the quilt. So just like if this green scarf I was wearing, this is a piece of fabric. If I wanted to make a quilt with this, I would cut it up into different pieces and sew it together in different parts of the quilt. Okay, so you want your colors to repeat. Okay. For example, if you're doing one that's more symmetrical like this, you want your colors to repeat in a symmetrical way. So I was imagining that this is a black polka dot dress with a pink background, right? And I used it at several different places in my quilt. All right, then some of the quilts had some really crazy colors. So you can see right here, I have a whole bunch of colors in a row. It's super colorful. So maybe I'll do that next. I'm gonna use, let's see, I kind of want my quilt, this one, I kind of want it to be mostly cool colors because it reminded me of the ocean. So I'm gonna grab some cool colors. Remember, green, blue, and purple are cool colors. But it might be fun to have some red too, just for a little extra flash. So maybe I'll do a couple of green. Let's see, some dark green, some light green, some purple. I'm trying to be as careful as I can. And then I'm going to repeat this in some other places around my quilt. All right, so now I put a lot of the greens and purples in. I even decided to do like a little pattern with the greens. Now, and I added some splashes of red. Now I'm going to imagine that I have a purple polka dot pattern. So I'm going to make my polka dots with marker. If you don't have markers, guys, you can do this whole project with crayons, but if your family is able to go out and get you some markers, that would be good for art. So there's my purple polka dots, and then I'm going to just color the background. And this is a different kind of purple than that purple. This was a blue violet, and I'm using just regular violet right now. And I'm going to add this color, this kind of fabric, at a lot of different places all around my quilt. All right, so I finished the purple polka dot design, and I added a gray marker with black crayon design in a bunch of places as well. Before I go any further, I want to show you what I'm grading you on. I'm grading you on harmony and unity. These are your objectives, harmony and unity, which means making the whole thing look like it goes together, right? So if I use every crayon, there's 16 crayons in this box. If I use all 16 crayons and get totally crazy with colors, it's gonna look like this crayon box threw up on my picture. That is not harmony. That doesn't make the whole thing go together. So to create harmony and unity, you need to repeat certain things. I'm repeating these wavy lines that I have, and I'm repeating my colors. Okay, I'm repeating my patterns. It makes the whole thing work together. Craftsmanship, we're not gonna be sloppy, and creativity. Don't copy mine, okay? Yours should look a little different than mine, all right? You can do something like this. You could do something like this, and you could look at the quilts on the G's Bend pictures that I'm showing you and get an idea from there. So get some ideas, don't copy the whole thing. That's what I'm grading you on. Those are your objectives. All right, so I'm just about done. I just have to fill in these other spaces. I want to see some patterns, but you can certainly have some solid colors too. Let me finish this up real quick. All right, I filled in the whole quilt. Now I just have to do my border, and I decided to do a black crayon and a black marker pattern. I wanted something that would have contrast, that would really show up compared to the quilt. And this is my finished art project. I'm all done. So have fun, try your best. If you get a little tired coloring, take a break, come back to it the next day. But make sure you upload your picture. I would love to see it when you're done. And guys, save your pictures. If you're a kid who comes to school in person, bring this into school and bring it down to the office and ask them to put it in my mailbox so I can hang it up, okay? Make sure your name is on the back. Let's write Mrs. Soto. Make sure your name is on the back. All right, thanks, bye.